For centuries, believers, scholars, and historians have been puzzled by a gap in the story of Jesus. We see him born in Bethlehem, wrapped in humility and wonder. We see him again at the age of 12, standing confidently in the temple, speaking with a wisdom that leaves religious teachers astonished. And then, suddenly, the story seems to fall silent. For nearly 18 long years, the familiar Gospels tell us almost nothing. No details, no stories, no clear explanations. It is as though history itself pauses, folds inward, and waits. These years have come to be known as the missing years of Jesus, and for generations people have asked the same question. What happened during that long silence? But what if the silence was never complete? What if the story did not vanish everywhere? What if, far from Rome, far from Europe, and far from the councils that shaped the Western Bible, the memory of Jesus' early life was quietly and carefully preserved? Before we go any further, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more discoveries like this. Ethiopia is unlike almost any other nation on earth. Christianity was not forced upon this land by European missionaries centuries later. It did not arrive through conquest, colonial rule, or the edge of a sword. Ethiopian Christianity is indigenous. It took root early, long before Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. In fact, Ethiopia is widely recognized as the first Christian kingdom in the world. Its faith grew alongside its culture, its kings, and its people. High in the mountains, ancient monasteries were carved directly into stone. Within their walls, monks prayed, fasted, and copied sacred texts by hand. They preserved writings in Ge'ez, the ancient language of Ethiopian kings and priests, a language still used in worship today. For Ethiopians, the Bible has never been a single book. It is a vast library, a sacred collection that includes texts many other Christian traditions eventually set aside. While the Western world narrowed its canon, Ethiopia preserved its wider treasury. And hidden within that treasury are stories that speak directly to the missing years of Jesus. Among these preserved writings is a collection known to scholars as the Ethiopic Infancy Gospel of Thomas. This work reflects some of the earliest Christian traditions about the childhood of Jesus. Though versions of these stories once circulated widely in the ancient world, they were gradually dismissed or forgotten in the West. In Ethiopia, however, they were cherished, carefully copied, read aloud, and passed down through generations. For Ethiopian believers, these stories were neither strange nor threatening. They were meaningful reflections of who Jesus was, even as a child. According to these ancient traditions, his childhood was not empty or ordinary. His divine nature did not suddenly appear in adulthood. It was already present, quietly yet powerfully shaping the world around him. One of the most beloved stories takes place on an ordinary day in Nazareth. The sun is warm. Children are playing. Young Jesus kneels in the dust, gently shaping small birds out of clay. Other children gather nearby, watching with curiosity and laughter. Then something extraordinary occurs. Jesus lifts his hands and speaks softly. The clay begins to move. The tiny figures tremble, stretch, and transform. Feathers appear. Wings unfold. In a moment both peaceful and overwhelming, the clay birds come alive. They rise into the air, chirping as they soar above the rooftops. Some children cry out in fear. Others fall silent in awe. Jesus remains calm, watching as if this moment is simply part of the natural order. In this story, creation responds to him without hesitation. For Ethiopian believers, it reveals something profound. Jesus does not dominate creation by force. He gives life gently, as one who belongs at its very heart. Another powerful account describes Jesus attending school. His teacher, often named Zacchaeus in the tradition, attempts to instruct him in the alphabet. But from the very first lesson, something astonishing becomes clear. When the teacher explains the first letter, Jesus responds by revealing not only its sound and shape, but its hidden mysteries and spiritual meaning, truths far beyond ordinary learning. The teacher is left speechless, finally declaring that this child cannot be like any other human being. The story is not meant to shame the teacher, but to reveal a reversal. The one expected to learn becomes the one who teaches. In Ethiopian tradition, this moment reminds readers that Jesus' wisdom was never acquired through study alone. It flowed naturally from who he was. The tradition also preserves gentle stories of healing from Jesus' childhood. In one account, Joseph is injured while working with wood and stone. His hand is badly wounded and fear fills the home. Mary watches helplessly. Young Jesus approaches quietly. There is no crowd and no announcement. He simply places his hand on Joseph's injury. Instantly the pain vanishes, the wound closes, the skin becomes whole as though it had never been harmed. Joseph trembles. Mary remains silent, carrying the weight of what she has witnessed. For them, this is no longer just a child. This is the one who carries the breath of God. In Ethiopian memory, the miracle is not dramatic. It is compassionate, reflecting the heart of the Savior even in childhood. Ethiopian Christianity also preserves rich traditions about the family's time in Egypt. These stories describe a journey protected by divine presence. When danger approaches, it fades away. Wild animals grow calm, thieves turn aside, restrained by unseen forces. The land itself seems to respond to the child's presence. Paths open, hearts grow peaceful. In these accounts, Jesus does not become the Messiah later in life. He already is the Messiah, even in innocence. Heaven, in a sense, walks with him wherever he goes. Over time, the Western Church became deeply concerned with order, doctrine, and uniformity. Councils debated which writings to include and which to exclude. Stories of Jesus' childhood were often seen as unnecessary or confusing, and gradually they faded from Western memory. Ethiopia followed a different path. Geographically isolated and spiritually independent, it continued copying its manuscripts in Ge'ez. Monks preserved these writings not to challenge the Gospels, but to meditate on them more deeply. While much of the world accepted silence, Ethiopia guarded the early whispers. When we read the Ethiopian infancy traditions, one truth becomes clear. Jesus' divinity was not delayed until adulthood. It was present from the beginning, quiet, gentle, and powerful. These stories do not replace the Gospels, nor do they compete with them. They illuminate them. They show a Jesus whose childhood itself was a living prophecy. Imagine what would have been lost had Ethiopia not protected these manuscripts. Ancient shelves of parchment hidden in mountain monasteries, lamps glowing beside scribes as sacred words were carefully copied, voices carried across centuries through faith and devotion. Ethiopia's Bible reminds us that the missing years of Jesus were never truly lost. They were preserved patiently and faithfully by a Christian community older than empires and cathedrals. It shows us that sometimes the greatest truths survive only because someone loved them enough to protect them. If this story has given you a deeper picture of Jesus, one filled with wonder, gentleness, and holy power, please subscribe to our channel for more insights into the Bible and ancient Christian history. Thank you for watching, and may peace be with you always.